our program, and welcome to everyone who's here with us today. We have a fabulous program. I'm going to go into share screen and begin. Yay. There we go. Again, welcome to our program today. If you have some odd little name on your picture, like me, myself, or gorgeous or something like that, would you please give us your first and preferably last name so we can make sure that we have you? Make sure that you are muted. Use the chat if you want to talk to other people later. If you have questions for our speakers, you can put that in chat. There's closed captioning if you prefer. And we all want to see your face, but if you need to munch or get up and stretch, use the stop video button. And then when you come back, do the start video again, or else we'll be following you all over. Okay. We respectfully acknowledge that statewide we are on the ancestral homelands of the indigenous nations that have inhabited these lands since time immemorial, including the Akchin, Akamo Odom, Apache, Colorado River, Fort Gila River, Havasupai, Hopi, Wallapai, Navajo, Paiute, Pima, Pipash, Wechan, Yaqui, and Yavapai peoples. Their traditional care and honoring of these lands allow us to be here today. Today, our two special fabulous guests are Tim Stringham, who's running for Maricopa County Recorder, and Dr. Laura Metcalfe, a candidate for Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools. Next month on February 27th, time noon to 1:30. We have not confirmed our speakers yet, but it will be candidates that you need to know and be familiar with. So join us February 27th. And we talk about armchair activism every month. It is so important. Now, Andrew, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
No, that was didn't know that I clicked that. So
Okay.
no, thank you though.
Well, maybe this time. All right. There are so many things that it's important for you to do between now and voting day in November. First of all, if you're not familiar with eQual, you can just Google eQual, put the dash in there, and all you need are the numbers from your Arizona driver's license and your date of birth. You will log into eQual, and because of who you are, they will give you all of the petitions that you are eligible to sign, and you can sign right there online. So everything from state legislator to constable to anything you want, you can sign their petition without having to leave a chair in your house. Also, if it is a clean elections candidate, you can contribute $5 right there online. So eQual, and again, all you have to do is Google E-Qual, and it will take you to the website. The second thing that we urge everyone to be part of is something called civic engagement beyond voting. And all you have to do is go to this website, CEBV, which is Civic Engagement Beyond Voting.us. It's an incredible, they have information, resources, anything that you need to find out what's going on in the state legislature. But here's the best part. Now, it's kind of a misnomer because you're not signing up to speak, but you're letting your voice be heard. And that's so important. So what what you will do with the help of CEBV is sign up for something called Request to Speak. Now, the Republicans have tried to keep people from doing that. And so you have to go down to the state capitol in person to sign up. Nope. CEBV will do it for you. All you need to do is give them a temporary password and your email, a temporary password for RTS, for Request to Speak. They will go down and sign you up. Once you're signed up, then you can go CEBV website. And here's what happens. Every week, they will send you, CEBV will send you a Request to Speak weekly letter. Since 2017, CEBV has registered over 13,000 people in Arizona for RTS, and they've held over 500 trainings on how to use it. So even if you are not like a 4-year-old and able to do everything on the computer, all you have to do is notify CEBV and say, I don't know how to use it. Please help me. They can train you to use RTS on Zoom. They also have one-on-one training sessions, and you can go in person with your laptop and learn how to use it. Yes. Why is it so important? Let me show you. Every Sunday, I get the CEBV weekly, and it tells me all of the bills that are in the state legislature, what they're about, and whether I should say, yes, I approve, or no, I oppose. It takes me about 30 minutes. Sunday, I went online with the CEBV weekly. It took me maybe 20, 25 minutes. And I responded to 26 House bills, 22 Senate bills, and 6 resolutions. Out of those 53 items coming before the state legislature this week, there were only 3 to support. Only 3 out of all those. And what I did was put my name, and I said oppose or support. And no, I don't want to come in person to speak. It takes about 15 seconds to do that. Then your name goes on a list. So, for example, let me show you some of the things that came up. When HB 2328 goes before the committee, my name will be on a list, and the chair has to read the numbers. They have to say there were 200 people supporting, there were 5,628 opposed. It's part of the public record. If you choose to write 25 words or something like that, because why you oppose it, they read your comment in the committee hearing. So your voice is loud and clear. Here's what I registered with my voice, just these 5, but I did all 53. HB 2328 is sponsored by a legislator who owns a food truck, and it would relax regulations on food trucks. The bill could lead to nuisances such as noise, gray water, trash, and grease being dumped in neighborhoods. I opposed HB 2472, which would give any elector, any voter, access to our physical ballots, ballot images, early ballot envelopes, and registration records. Imagine the damage this could do to our safe and secure elections. I also opposed SB 1007, which would put Arizona public school teachers, not private school teachers, behind bars for up to 2 years if they so much as recommend a book to students that lawmakers disagree with. HB 2310, I objected to that because it would essentially make it a felony to teach a health class. I opposed HB 2547, which would ban voting centers. The voting center model allows voters to cast a ballot anywhere in the county, for example, near work or their child's school, without having to go across to another precinct, their home precinct. So do you want your voice on these issues? Do you want your voice on this week on 53 items that are going to the state legislature? If so, please go to CEBV, Civic Engagement Beyond Voting, and register for requests to speak. There's no excuse not to. If you can turn on a computer, you can do it, and your voice can be heard and counted every week. This is also a great time to go to your legislative district and volunteer. You can write postcards, you can canvass, you can make phone calls, you can bring water and snacks to people who are canvassing. There are all kinds of things that you can do. All you have to do is Google Maricopa County Democratic Party and find out which LD you're in, or volunteer at Maricopa County Democratic Party, or go to Arizona Democratic Party. I've put the URLs there, but all you have to do is Google and it does the work for you. All right, next is notes from our chair, Linda Ambrose. And Linda, it's a delight to have you as.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a delight to be with you all. And thank you for that CVBVD. I always get into the D's. There's no D, but thank you for going into detail. If that doesn't motivate us, I don't know what does, to get online. Was there any vote at all that you would have wanted to make yes on? I'm just curious.
Yes, there were only 3.
3 out of all of them.
Out of 53, there were 3.
Okay. I can understand why when you even went into the detail of those 5. It's unbelievable. We got to change that state Congress. Okay. All right. So here I am. And here you are. Hello, dear Blue Tuesday audience. And I do welcome you to 2024. May it be not only a happy journey, but also a meaningful journey, enabling us to help safeguard democracy for our United States of America. We do not have an easy task ahead of us. In my 2023 chair comments, I have often talked about our need and responsibility to understand what challenges we face in our 2024 elections, not just for electing our president, but also for the seats in the House and Senate, both state and federal. For too long, Democrats have been handicapped with very narrow margins, either as a majority or a minority party, resulting in being held hostage to the Republicans effectively blocking too many much-needed pieces of legislation being passed, while U.S. citizens bear the brunt of their obstruction. Little progress has occurred from our Congress for over 8 years, thanks to these far-right Republicans. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz comes to mind immediately. A perfect example of that is happening at this very moment, as our U.S. Senate is bipartisanly trying to work out a legal immigration policy to be put into place immediately in order to respond to the overwhelming illegal immigrants flooding our country. We remain without any real plan of action in place to relegate numbers and to allow these illegal immigrants a place to legally enter our country in order to work and have better lives in the U.S. Yet, the Republican-controlled House refuses to look at any immigration legislation by orders of ex-President Trump, who no longer holds office, but says he will be the next president and wants to, and I quote, take care of these illegals once and for all. How pathetically sad these robotic Republicans have become, and to the detriment of you United States freedoms. Thus, unless we have been hiding under a rock in 2023, we Democrats, moderate Republicans, and some independents know we are in an uphill battle. We have over twice as many Democrats having to run for re-election in the Senate alone versus the Republicans having much fewer required to rerun. As I just mentioned, our razor-thin majority in the Senate and our razor-thin minority numbers in the House leaves us in the fight of our lives, because we now are also the challenged caretakers of democracy. In November's talk, I mentioned Rachel Maddow's incredible historical book on fascism in our country, and the name of that was Prequel, with a subtitle, Why Is This Happening? It's an amazing history of fascism. So if you haven't already, please check out what she has to say, because we cannot afford to be naive anymore about the forces that we are up against. Another great source to check out would be Yale professor Timothy Snyder's new book entitled Tyranny. Among other factions around the globe, he cites the history of Germany, when in the 1930s, the Germans were experiencing a great and strong economy and had the opportunity to be one of the greatest countries in the world. Yet they squandered that opportunity to be now known mostly and remembered as a former Nazi Germany. They bowed to the prejudice and false pride and then hate, resulting in being seemingly hypnotized by Hitler and his bad actors, while slaughtering and attempting the genocide of millions of Jews and objectors. As Snyder warned, and I want you to hear this could be America's century for blowing it, the way the Germans did, by falling for the fascist Nazi promises. That is scary. Also, even with our economy recovering from Trump, then from the pandemic setbacks, and our rather speedy economic recovery happening because of Biden and his congressional Democrats, we are still not safe from radicalism because of several factors. We know Trump has promised he will become the dictator on day one, and that seems to be okay with his numbed followers. Yet let's not forget we are also enduring the result of many years of Murdoch's successfully propagandized Fox broadcast, reaching and convincing almost half of our country's voting majority that invalid facts are now facts. Misinformation has become an accepted cancer that reaches out over the internet, the radio, and the TV outlets, so that now autocracy, also known as dictatorship, has taken hold of our misinformed public, who cannot discern what is fact or what is fiction. If news is reported as factual, even if it's proven as false, this public accepts and believes it to be true. The perfect examples are the January 6th insurrection denied as happening, the 2000 election results denied as happening, and even the Holocaust in Germany denied as happening. Lastly, the autocratic propaganda, also supported by other far-right Republican media outlets, has effectively polarized people and split the electorate even more. Let's not forget the lack of effective media coverage of Biden's incredible accomplishments and how he pulled us out of the pandemic, and how we are once again on the world stage and a power to be reckoned with. Do we hear much about how our economy has improved since Biden took over? Not much. And the list goes on and on. Yet Trump gets covered almost daily by the news media every freaking blooming time he gets out of the court trials. Free publicity because he has done inexplicably bad things over and over. Furthermore, we Democrats are under pressure to get out the new young voters, where apathy reigns. The 18-year-olds into their early 20s have not even experienced or really know any good government and how it works, because they know of government only under Trump's leadership. So they are now more cynical that democracy even works. And they get most of their news from the internet filled with false facts. Lastly, on this subject, and I'm sorry to be giving you all this information that seems negative, but we need to know it to move on. Ian Bassin, or Bassin, maybe it's pronounced, Executive Director of Protect Democracy, a nonprofit dedicated to combating authoritarianism, says Biden needs to connect democracy to voters' personal experiences on other issues, in the same way Trump repeats to his supporters that prosecutions of him are persecutions of them, his followers. My remedy for this is that we connect democracy to the rights of abortion, the rights of voting, the rights of education, and of all the freedoms we now might still enjoy and might be taking for granted. We must stress to others that once a dictator is elected, there is no turning back. There is no way of getting rid of that dictator. If we need reminders, let us look to Russia, to Hungary, to Turkey, and now to even Argentina, a country, a country which under their new dictatorship has created inflation of over 200% and has imprisoned most who opposed him. That's Argentina. Rarely do any amounts of protest work. The protesters are simply imprisoned or killed. So let's get down to the positive stuff, the stuff that we can do. First, I urge you to Google Biden's accomplishments for yourself. You will find pages and pages worth, which even have to have a table of contents to categorize the vast list. The list I found divides into the following titles: domestic policy, immigration border, climate change, human rights, COVID-19, national security, judiciary, environment, and foreign policy. Each of these titles were supported with ad infinitum list of accomplishments. It would do well for each of us to pick out the significant ones to us and familiarize ourselves with those we picked, because those would be the basis in our conversations with others, those that resonate within us, thus being the easiest to recall. In our February's visit, I hope to have the opportunity to go into more detail about Biden's qualifications and accomplishments. However, there are some fundamentals that roll right off the tongue, like, who would you rather have as president? Someone who's always beating down everyone who disagrees with him or her, or someone who's always lifting others up? Or how about this one? Would you rather have a president who creates chaos every day of his presidency, or one who continues to create improvement in your everyday lives? Second, I must end with planting the seed that flourishes our ability to sharpen our communication skills, how to converse with others who don't share similar political viewpoints. I will give one last thought in this process to be continued next month. Start your conversations by first asking the question, what do you value the most? And be sincere about it. Or what are your values that you consider most important? Then listen to the other's answers, after which time it's your turn to share your values. Flowing into why politics becomes important, because you vote for who you think shares your values and will protect those values. In other words, don't start your conversation with statements like, Trump is an idiot. It doesn't work. Also in February's talk, I will speak to how the communication in the series, Ted Lasso, has everything to do with our communication skills, as does Governor Gavin Newsom's messaging, and then some. Until next time then, keep the faith, keep moving forward, and keep safe. And speaking of moving forward, let's now enjoy our incredible guest speakers. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda. And talking about protecting democracy is a perfect segue to our first speaker, Tim Stringham. He's spent his adult life fighting in political venues and physically for democracy. Tim Stringham, oops, let me do a share so that you can see.
And welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Here. There. All right. Tim Stringham has the commitment and the best qualifications to be our next Maricopa County recorder. He also has the best motivation. In Tim's words, quote, "I was on active duty in the United States Navy on January 6, 2021. I watched for 3 hours as protesters ransacked our nation's capital, and my commander-in-chief said nothing. Later, I learned that fake electoral votes were submitted from my home state of Arizona to overturn the national election results. I'm running for Maricopa County recorder to protect our elections," end quote. Tim is a veteran of both the Army and the Navy, including a tour of Afghanistan in 2012. He continues to serve as an officer in the Naval Reserve. By the way, Tim missed the Maricopa County launch of his campaign because he was on duty out of the country. As a member of the U.S. military, he's traveled to over 40 countries on 4 continents. Tim was an attorney in the United States Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps, or JAG, as it is known by those of us who admire and respect the JAG mission and commitment to justice. While in JAG, it was Tim's job to help develop the rule of law in Africa and the Middle East. He has seen what countries look like when the rule of law collapses. In Tim's words, quote, "Serving in the military has been the greatest honor of my life, but the greatest threat to democracy isn't a foreign power. It's politicians at home who are willing to peddle lies and conspiracies to get elected, or who try and pick and choose who gets to vote to ensure their own election," end quote. After you've heard Tim speak, you too will be committed to elect Tim Stringham as our next Maricopa County recorder. Tim, thank you for being with us today.
Well, I have to say I'm pretty upset with the speaker that went before me, because I thought that was an excellent talk. It took most of my talking points, and now I have to follow that act. So that's rough. And I'm also aware that I think there's a ton of people on the call who have heard me speak before, so I'll try and hit the highlights, but I want to leave time for questions and some updates of some things that are going on right now in the state. If you haven't met me before, I'm a born and raised Arizonan. My wife and I went to high school together. We went to community college and college together at Arizona State, and then I joined the United States Army. When I went to Afghanistan, I was 23 years old. I was leading troops in a country that had a brand new democracy, and it was our job to try and get people to buy in to a country where they felt like they had a radically different set of views than their neighbors. You had distrust in between villages, you had distrust between genders, between religions, and unfortunately, I think we all know that it's a lot easier to break something than it is to build something. In Afghanistan, we failed. And that's something I always have a hard time saying, because I know that there were millions of people who were trapped in horrible conditions. I think people always assume that that kind of thing can't happen here in the United States. And the last speaker so brilliantly referenced the Weimar Republic and the conditions that set Germany on its tragic course. The Weimar Republic, prior to the election of Adolf Hitler, was one of the most industrialized, richest countries in the world. It had more PhDs per capita, had more copyrights per capita, and it was actually an incredibly diverse nation. in a way that we don't think of anymore. The Weimar Constitution was one of the most liberal constitutions in the entire world at the time, but it had a single provision, Article 48, which Adolf Hitler was able to use to seize powers there. If there is a fault in a democracy, dictators and bullies will find a way to usurp those things. They'll find a way to tear things apart and break them down. This was a real wake-up call for me on January 6th to be serving on active duty and trying to build up democratic regimes all across the world, try and enhance rights. That same year, I was working on a program in Somalia at the invitation of the Somali government to do a sexual harassment program for their military. And it was alarming for me to be doing that work overseas and seeing progress overseas and realize we were slipping backward in the States. So for those of you who don't know, on January 6th, not only did we see the riots at the Capitol, but we saw 11 Republican officials swear out fake electoral votes and try and overturn the vote here in Arizona. One of those individuals, Anthony Kern, is a state legislator. He still sits in the Arizona state legislature, and he's currently running for Debbie Lesko's seat in the Congress. He's just introduced a bill saying that the state legislature gets to determine the outcome of a presidential race in the state of Arizona. These are not incidences that have ended, that have been solved, or that are properly protected against. There are people in the state that are still trying to full stop take away your right to vote. Now, some of those people are going to vote differently than I will, and I respect that, and they have their right to vote. But I think to take away somebody's right to vote altogether, that has to be a red line beyond which they cannot pass. There's so many things that we care about in this election cycle. We care about women's reproductive rights. We care about civil rights. We care about effective, safe, accountable policing. None of those issues, education, my God, the things that are happening in this state with regards to education and book bans, we're not going to get to those issues if we take the right to vote away from people. Now, I like to tell people the numbers here in the state. What the recorder does is it manages the voter rolls and it helps manage the election process. So let me tell you a little bit where we are with Democrats in the state and in Maricopa County and some of the challenges we'll have in this election cycle and how I think we can improve voting rights for everybody going forward. First off, you keep hearing we need to keep Arizona blue. Arizona has a Democratic voter deficit against Republicans of 200,000 votes. Arizona hasn't gone blue yet. And I think that, again, goes exactly to what the last speaker says. Emphatically, Donald Trump is an idiot. But we have to voice that in a way that gets people to understand why it is that Democrats are the responsible party. Laura Metcalfe is speaking next. There is a Republican incumbent at the county superintendent's office for education that has failed to properly account for over $5 million. We have a state legislature which has produced a huge deficit because of Republican policies on education in these ESA bills. We have to stop forfeiting the fiscal responsibility argument. Republicans are not fiscally responsible. That's an argument we need to be taking to their voters. Republicans always want to tell us that they're the most patriotic. I served in both the Army and Navy, in war and in peace, under 3 different presidencies. I serve in a state in which we have a Democratic senator who is in the United States Navy and an astronaut. We have a soon-to-be elected Democratic senator to the U.S. Senate who is a Marine Corps combat veteran who served in Iraq. And we have a Secretary of State who is a Marine Corps veteran. Carrie Lake has never served. Donald Trump has never served. David Schweikert has never served. Anthony Kern has never served. Don't let them tell you that we're not patriotic. And don't let people tell you that school teachers who every day get up to say the Pledge of Allegiance with their kids and to try and teach their kids to be responsible citizens and to understand our government and how it's supposed to work, that those people aren't patriotic either. And I think we need to take those talking points back. Now, specifically in Maricopa County, our deficit is 130,000 voters. And I'll tell you a little bit about the system works. When you register to vote, you go onto the active early voter list. If they send you a piece of mail and that piece of mail comes back undeliverable, they take you off of the early voter list and they move you to the inactive list. Over the last year, Democrats have lost over 50,000 voters. Now, thankfully, there's a relatively quick fix for that. If you go to beballotready.vote, you can check your voter registration. If you've been moved to the inactive list, all you have to do is update your address and you move back to the active list. We can very quickly add a lot of our Democrats back to the voter rolls and make sure that they know how to vote. That's one of the things that Sam, my campaign manager, and I are doing, is trying to text voters across the valley to make sure that they're ballot ready and they can vote. Now, going past that, talking about some other things, just broadly speaking, challenges that we have in the state. We have challenges for people who do move around a lot, keeping their voter registration active. A lot of people don't know that if you don't have a permanent address, you still have a right to vote. One of the strange things that we have in Arizona that no other state has, you essentially have to prove your citizenship twice in Arizona to vote. You have to prove it when you get your driver's license, and then they ask for your birth certificate or your naturalization documentation again when you register to vote. This has produced a two-tier system in Arizona that no other state has. In Arizona, we have over 30,000 voters who are federal-only voters. They can receive a federal ballot, but not a ballot to run for or to vote in school board races, city council races, or state legislature races. Those voters are overwhelmingly concentrated in Flagstaff, Tempe, and downtown Tucson. So we have a voter system in Arizona that no other state has that is designed to disenfranchise college students. Those are some of the things I think we need to do a better job of in the state. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Senator Marsh from LD4. She just introduced a bill into the Senate that probably is not going to pass here in Arizona, but hopefully it will in the next cycle, that would give automatic voter registration so that when you go and get your driver's license, you can automatically be entered into the system. I think we would also love in this state to see same-day voter registration. I think we would also like to see in this state, for those people who are carrying around the abortion access petition, it is a lot harder to get a referendum or initiative on the ballot than it is to get a politician on the ballot. And we can speed that process up so much and give citizens a voice in their government, like our Constitution here in the state of Arizona gives you a right to put a ballot initiative forward before your fellow citizens. If we can move those referendums onto the Secretary of State's equal system. So those are some of the challenges that I see going forward with regards to the election, and some of the policies that I think that we need to have conversations at the state, which would require flipping the state legislature and then having good administrators who are capable of actually implementing those policies at the local offices. Again, I know a lot of people have heard me speak before, so this was very different than my normal stump speech, but I didn't want to repeat information for those of you who have now heard me speak 4 and 5 times and are getting bored. And I also wanted to leave time for questions. I've been campaigning for 3 months now. I understand some of you probably do have tough questions, and I say throw them out there and let's find out if I'm ready for them.
Tim, this is Janie. I want to start off by saying that I've heard some people be complacent, maybe, about the Republican who is now our Maricopa County recorder.
Sure.
But we have to elect you to take his place. We have to have you as our Maricopa County recorder. Would you please tell us why?
Yeah, sure. I think the cheap answer is you never know what the Republican Party is even going to do anymore, right? You don't know that if the current Republican incumbent is even going to make it through his primary. There's currently somebody who's challenging him, running on a platform of getting rid of mail-in ballots altogether. Now, I think I could also point out that Stephen Richer got elected to office because he published 214 pages of conspiracy theories about Adrian Fontes, because he was close with Kelly Ward, that he's a Republican who donated money and supported Shauna Bollock. But I think we all know that he's had a journey with the Republican Party that's moved him past that. If you elect the incumbent again, I think you're going to get a capable administrator. You're going to get somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with you on your values, somebody who doesn't support those other policy implementations that I talked about, like having same-day voter registration. But you will get somebody who meets your base expectations. I think we have a problem in the United States, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to run for office, where we have become so disillusioned with the politicians that we have that we are willing to simply accept not terrible. I wanted to run because I wasn't willing to accept a politician who spoke to my base expectations. I wanted someone who was going to reach for my higher aspirations. And that's why I want your vote. And that's what I think as Democrats we have to be doing, not just in Maricopa County, but across 15 counties in Arizona if we truly want to turn the state blue.
Janie, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
If you have a question for Tim, please either put it in the chat, or if you can navigate the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, please do that. Tim, what do you need for your campaign right now? What can we do to get you elected?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one thing for all of these campaigns, I've seen it in the chat a couple times. You can either go directly to the Arizona Secretary of State website to sign petitions, not just for me, but for all the candidates. Or you can go to my website and that'll take you to the petitions as well. County candidates need to get 3,905 vetted signatures. That includes candidate Tyler Camp, who just entered in the sheriff race. For somebody who remembers Joe Arpaio vividly, I walked out of a class at South Mountain Community College and there were sheriff's deputies waiting to ID members of my world religions class. I think that was 2009. No, probably earlier than that, probably 2007. And the sheriff's deputies, I remember vividly, waved me through and checked the IDs of Hispanic students coming out of a South Mountain Community College class. It's absolutely critical we get a sheriff on a ballot. I always tell people, if everything that I've told you fails to resonate, go on eQual anyway, sign for the other candidates, make sure you get on there. And if you can, proliferate that link and let's help all of the county candidates, help Ruben, let's help the state legislatures get on the ballot so the voters at least have a choice. Secondly, like I said, Sam and I are trying to run a text message campaign to as many people as we can, just to remind them to be ballot ready. That's one of the cheapest and most effective ways for a down ballot race like us in order to get out the vote. So if you can, any donations you'd make to our campaign is a cost-effective way of making sure that we register voters. We're also going to look at running voter registration drives up at Arizona State University. The third thing that I would ask you to do, if, again, nothing that I've said resonates with you, before I got into politics, I did not understand how important the legislative districts were. They're so important. Go get involved in those legislative districts. A lot of the LDs are running campaigns, first off, to reach out to new voters. They're doing postcard operations or canvassing. Those need funding and they need volunteers. And then below that, the legislative districts are also looking at putting together Democratic ballot guides so that come November, voters have a quick, easy access guide. Arizona has terrible ballots. They're incredibly long. And my wife and I take days to fill out our ballots. We're constantly discussing it and talking it. And they're so long, we've never had a ballot where my wife and I have ever agreed on everything on the ballot. If you're walking into a voting booth and you don't have time to go to these meetings, those ballot guides can be extremely, extremely helpful. And I've seen statistics that show that they can increase turnout for down ballot races anywhere from 5 to 10%. So I think it goes back to what we've said in this meeting. Things break quicker than they're built. We all have to jump in sooner rather than later to try and build the effort that's going to make Democrats successful in November and make sure that we get the policies that we want going forward for years to come. So I really encourage you, jump in as quickly as possible and let's do what we can to turn Arizona blue for real. And that means reaching out to a lot of these Republicans and letting them know we're not against you. You might be against us, but every policy we're going to do is going to be to build an Arizona for you and for your children and for your grandchildren as well.
Great, Tim. This is usually a pretty common question, but after you are elected, thank you. What do you foresee is the first thing that you will want to change or reinforce in the position as Maricopa County Recorder?
Yeah, I think the absolute first thing that you have to do in that office nowadays, and it's just becoming a motif across America, you have to immediately look at safety. You have to have the ability for people to telework in that office, not just for their own convenience now, but because there's always the possibility now that county facilities are going to be shut down due to safety threats, and people need to work in a safe manner from home if they can't get into the building. So I think that has to be the number one thing. I think the second thing is we need to have a better focus on education. The first thing that I would like to do in January when I take office is let's invite every single legislator, Democrat or Republican, take them down to the tabulation center, give them the most in-depth tour of the tabulation center that those legislators have ever had. And if they have complaints about the process, let's address those, but let's do so in an informed manner, and not be spending $5-6 million on a state Senate investigation that's doing litmus testing on ballots to see whether they contain Chinese bamboo. I think we need better education, because the truth is I learn something new about our voter process every single day. It's a complicated system, and I think that for too long we've just taken for granted our voting systems, and we need to get people involved in that. And I think a big part of that is recruiting too. And that brings me to the third thing, is proper resourcing of the election process. We hire over 6,000 temporary workers for our elections. Some of those workers are working 18-hour days. The current salary for those workers is $14.50 an hour. And a lot of the people who are looking at doing those jobs now have questions about safety. So I think if you're the recorder, you need to make sure that the office itself is a safe, pleasant environment for people to work. I think you need to go and educate statewide, but then also you need to be an advocate for resources for that office and for its workers, and make sure that we're doing the right things to implement the systems and bring in the people that we need to be successful.
One last question, from Janet Vives. How can you help voters choose judges? That's like 6 pages long on the ballot.
Yeah, it's boy, and that's a tough question. I think we need to take a hard look at how we put voter guides together in the state. And some of those requirements are put together by the state legislature, and some of them now have case law going into them. It's very, very difficult, statistically or otherwise, to analyze a judge's record. I don't know that that's honestly something that the county recorder should be doing. And I'm very hesitant to weigh in on the voter guide, because I know that I myself would have a hard time being unbiased. And I have seen some of the judgments that have come out of Republican politicians' mouths, or the legal arguments they make, that I think are absolutely insane. And I think we need to let the parties make the argument on retention of judges. And not have, for instance, I'd be really, really concerned if we had a Republican recorder trying to change voter guides in favor of pro-life judges. And I imagine Republicans would have the same concern about me. And so I think we need to make sure that we're trying to educate about the process and try and leave the substance as much as possible to the voters.
I think for a quick answer, Cindy has the question: many of us would work elections if the shift could be cut into 2. Can you get the legislature, this is after January, of course, to change the law saying election workers must work a 16-hour day?
Let me take a look at that one and actually see, because some of those policies will be set by the recorder's office and the county board of supervisors, and some of those policies will be set by the legislature. But emphatically, what I would say is this: in the United States Army, when the temperature gets up over 100 degrees or so, the US Army, even for me, I was in special operations, we start putting restrictions of 45 minutes on, 15 minutes off. We run elections in August in the state where the concrete gets up to 150 degrees, the ambient temperature is 115 degrees. There's a huge safety concern if you have poll workers working 16 hours a day. It's an untenable situation. And I think you shouldn't be Republican or Democrat to realize that we don't want people passing out from heat stroke while they're trying to practice their right to vote. That's a completely untenable situation, and it's one that'll probably get more acute going forward because of the challenges of our heat island and climate change. So absolutely, I think the day really should be fewer than 8 hours, even for a lot of these poll workers.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you so much for being one of our guest speakers today. You've heard Tim, and you know that he doesn't make empty promises. He has the background, the commitment to be a fabulous Maricopa County recorder. We must have him in office so that we are doing our part to preserve democracy and expand voter rights in Arizona. So please join me in supporting Tim in as many ways as you can for Maricopa County Recorder. Thank you again, Tim.
Thanks. I
Tim
appreciate
must win. Tim must win.
appreciate it.
All right, our next speaker is Laura Metcalfe. Dr. Laura Metcalfe is exactly the person we must elect to be our Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools. She's an educator who came from industry to make a significant difference in education. She's passionate about supporting learning and achievement for all kids, families, the public school system, and communities. Laura holds 27 years of progressively responsible education experience, starting as a high school teacher to a district level administrator. She's also worked in the Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools office as a leader supporting all levels of schools within Maricopa County. Laura earned a doctorate degree in educational leadership from Northern Arizona University, and she is certified in Arizona as a school superintendent. When we elect Dr. Laura Metcalfe, she will bring integrity, innovation, and inclusion to an office that currently lacks all three. Her integrity will ensure that the office is providing relevant and timely school support, and she will bring fiscal responsibility to an office that has wrongly cost taxpayers millions. Her innovation will ensure that the office is providing relevant and timely school support, which is currently lacking. And her commitment to inclusion will ensure that schools, families, and others will finally be connected to services and supports they need. I have spent 57 years of my life as an educator and educational leader and have seen the worst that a politician with no regard for quality education can do to our schools. To turn that around in Maricopa County, we must elect Dr. Laura Metcalfe as our next Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you for being with us today, Laura, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to do a sound check. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we've been around. I've been on the trail now for about a year. And so some of you have probably heard me several times. And so like Tim, I try to keep it fresh. But then there are always others that are not familiar with who I am or the office. You've gotten a great bio on me as far as my background and my qualifications. But let me talk a little bit about the office. It is a down ballot race. It is basically at the bottom of the county list of options to choose elected officials. And it is something that a lot of people don't know about. A lot of folks, rightly so, confuse this office with Tom Horn. That is the state superintendent. This is the county superintendent. And out of the 15 counties in Arizona, there are 13 elected county superintendents. The Maricopa County Superintendent's Office started in 1871. And before the state became a state in 1912, it was the oversight for all of the schools in Maricopa County. And as the point, and but since the state became since the State Department of Education became part of the state hierarchy, the county superintendent offices have been considered support agencies. And right now, there are no supports provided to any schools in this county. There are large deficits of funding that's missing and being investigated. But I think the most important thing that this office will also do is oversee the support for school boards, public school district school boards. School boards, school board elections are overseen by this office. Replacement of school board members who step down from their terms are also replaced out of this office. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And then obviously budget overrides and school district bond elections are overseen in this office. So those are some of the most common areas that this office will oversee. But let me talk a little bit about school boards. School boards are incredibly important. They are the elected officials. I am a school board member. I serve on East Valley Institute of Technology School Board. But in Arizona law, there are two flavors that this county superintendent, me, can use to nominate school board members who are being replaced. The first, and the current way things are being done by Steve Watson, which I'll show a picture of him in just a moment, is through his office taking in all of the applications for an open school board seat, and his team and him alone choosing the replacement for the school board member. We've seen time and time again, Mesa and Peoria are probably one of the most well-known documented cases of poorly selected replacements, school board member replacements. Neither of those individuals, although nice people, I'm sure, have any experience working in public schools or know anything about public schools. They do not understand the governance and the responsibility and the legal issues that go along with being a school board member. Mr. Watson continually chooses those members on his own agenda, which is conservative Republican alignment, and they are inexperienced, and they are personal care. They are basically his friends and colleagues that he chooses. Not in every case, don't get me wrong, not every case, but in the big ones, he does lean in that area. So that is one flavor of the Arizona law that the school superintendency can use to select school board replacements. I will not use that. The other flavor that I will use will be the local control of school districts. School districts can use, any school district can take those applications for a board member who has where they have an opening. They can prove and go through those applications and conduct those interviews on their own, making top three selections that can be referred to the county school superintendent for a further interview, background check, and selection. What that does is that allows the school board candidates, the school board themselves, the administration, and the teachers in those communities, as well as community members, to select the best selection and fit for their community and school. And knowing who they are and vetting them themselves gives them local control. And that is what school boards are not having at this time. And that is what I will return to those school districts, because that is where they need to have the choice of selecting the best fit for a school board member that has stepped down. I will simply confirm what they've selected and allow them to then locally govern their school district the way they feel best, with the best people they believe should be on that bench. So that will be one thing that this office will change. The other thing I'd like to do is, if I can share a screen here, I will introduce you to the incumbent who has been responsible for losing $5 to $6 million of our taxpayer money. There are many, many issues here, but let me pull up this momentary picture so you can see who it is that I am. Oops, I think I need share screen capability. Oh, here we go. Chrome tab window, entire screen, Chrome tab. Here we go. I will introduce you to Steve Watson, who is this is the current incumbent for Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools. He is a Republican. He is a conservative, and this is off of his campaign website. So if you'd like to take a look, I've got his website there. Don't vote for him, but that's his website right there, votewatson.com. And everyone I show this to has a little giggle because it technically is inappropriate and unprofessional. But I did want to introduce you to him so that way you knew who it was that I was talking about. A couple of things I want to talk about now are the missing money. Right now, what we've got are $5 to $6 million of unaccounted for expenditures going on, and this money was supposed to go to a school district called the Maricopa County Accommodation School District that serves educational opportunities for students who are at risk and who are in detention education. There is also a federal education grant where there's $1.7 million missing, and I have a little slide that we can talk about with that. I'll break that down for you. So right now, what's happening is that the Board of Supervisors back last May 10th and May 24th, ordered this office and the school district to participate in a forensic audit. And a forensic audit is currently underway. It started in October of 2023, and it will wrap up in March or April of 2024. Right now, there are no outcomes to this audit because it is ongoing. But if you would like more information, I do have news articles available for your review. If somebody could collect some emails, if you're interested, I will send you a scanned copy of all of them, because unless you have, if you are a subscriber to azcentral.com, you wouldn't be able to see those articles, but I am more than happy to send those to you if I have your email. And this money has been missing since 2019. That's unacceptable, unacceptable. So here's a little breakdown of what's going on with the missing money problem. $1.7 million are missing from a federal education grant. $2.7 million are missing from a line of credit to support the Maricopa County Regional School District. That is the school district that I just mentioned that provides education to kids who are in detention education. And also there's a high school they support with a lot of foster kids and kids who have been thrown out of public school. The Board of Supervisors paid back $2 million on that line of credit for the Maricopa County Regional School District in June of 2022. And the forensic audit right now is estimated to cost about $160,000 to find the missing money. So that's $6.56 million of our taxpayer funding that is missing. And that has been spent on the failures of this individual who is not providing any services, and nor is he overseeing our taxpayer money in a prudent and legal way. I get a lot of questions about how and why this happened. And this is, and so to be honest with you, there is no oversight technically in place for this office. And I will be putting pieces of oversight back into this office, because I worked for the Maricopa County Superintendent's office and I worked for the Maricopa County Regional School District as a school district administrator. I will be placing oversights back into place. But to begin with, this is the organizational chart for Maricopa County. And if you'll look down here, you'll see on the left, these are all of the elected positions. You have judges, clerk of the court, county attorney, constable, sheriff, treasurer, assessor. Here's Tim's position here. And then way down here at the bottom is education. So technically, the elected officials should be able to have some oversight with the Board of Supervisors. But if you can tell underneath my arrow here, these elected positions do not directly respond or are overseen by the Board of Supervisors. The clerk of the court and this other box that I've got covered up are the only two that have direct oversight that the Board of Supervisors oversees. Now, all of our elected officials on the left are accountable to the Board of Supervisors for a budget, including education. So what we have here is Mr. Watson has a very tenuous relationship with the Board of Supervisors. They do not communicate well. They do not see eye to eye, and that relationship has deteriorated significantly over the course of time. And I will be making sure that this office has open communication on a regular, consistent basis, and we will repair those relationships with the Board of Supervisors continually. It will not be easy, but that is one of the things that I am looking to do day one. So I get a lot of questions like, okay, what are you going to do about fixing this mess? Well, not only am I going to be inheriting this mess, but it's going to cause a lot of restrictions on what I'm able to accomplish as quickly as I'd like to. What I will be doing, first of all, is bringing back fiscal integrity to this office. I will be placing a full-time person or a third-party agency embedded in the office day one to be overseeing all of the fiscal transactions that this office and that school district oversee. There will be regular reports to the Board of Supervisors and to the constituency of Maricopa County through reports that will be understandable because school finance is very complicated. I have a lot of experience with that, and it's also in my doctorate degree, but it will be broken down into an understandable format for anyone to understand. And it will be consistent. It will be every 3 months, it will be every 6 months, but it will be posted, it will be communicated, and it will be understandable. So fiscal integrity will be part of that picture. Secondly, the innovation element. Right now, as I mentioned, there are no services, none, provided to any school in this county, and they haven't been there since 2017. When I worked in that office, now I'm not saying I'm going to put a person like me in the office, but just an example, I went out to all of the rural school districts in Western Maricopa County, and because small school districts don't have a lot of people, they never had enough people to be able to fulfill the requirements that they needed to operate successfully and help students and teachers be successful. One example that I do not mind talking about is I was a lunch lady in Mobile Elementary School District. I served kids lunch because they didn't have a lunch person. So I drove from downtown Phoenix out to Mobile, which is just outside of Maricopa, and I put on my little net and I said, would you like macaroni and cheese with that? And I served lunch to kids. That's because that's what they needed. In the same day, I would drive down Dead Cow Trail, which is the back way from Mobile to Gila Bend. I was the director of curriculum and instruction, where I assisted the superintendent and the teachers K-12 to update their curriculum in their K-8 school and to update the curriculum at the high school. Believe it or not, they were using books from 1984. This was 2010 at the time. That is frightening. So school districts need that support. And I have gone around for the last 16 months talking to superintendents around the valley, small school districts, large school districts, Gila Crossing School on the Gila community, the Native American community, Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind, Deer Valley, Chandler, and Scottsdale, to name a few, on finding out what they need. So the innovation piece that we will be putting into this office will include teacher professional development, curriculum support and guidance, school business official training and placement, and special education leadership development and training and support. Those are the big pieces of what school districts want and need. Now, that's the innovation piece because it's never been done before. What I will inherit will be a limited budget. The Board of Supervisors in May of 2023 put a resolution against this office saying that you will not spend any more money than what you have. The budget for the Maricopa County Superintendent's Office is $3.7 million, and the budget for the Maricopa County Regional School District is $3.4 million for this fiscal year. I cannot bring in any additional grants because the federal grant that has already been misappropriated, the federal government will not let me bring in any more money because it's like credit. If you have bad credit, you can't get more credit. You can't buy a car, you can't rent out an apartment. But in this case, I cannot apply for any federal grants because that federal grant has already been mismanaged. So that grant funding is off the table. And I will not be able to apply for, even though he may have to pay it back, which he will, I will not be able to bring in any additional money because he messed that up. He messed up my credit with the federal government. So what am I going to have to do to be able to make this happen? I am going to be collapsing positions. I will be restructuring the internal workings of this office. There will be some people who will be let go. There are individuals who are still holdouts from when I worked in that office that are making $100,000 per year plus, and they are doing absolutely nothing. Now, I can't tell you who those individuals will be because I am out looking in rather than in looking out. But I guarantee you what I'm going to be doing is restructuring that entire office to make it innovative, fiscally have fiscal integrity, and it will be inclusive. And it will be a difficult challenge to make sure that I am able to meet all these goals of the superintendents and school districts that I've talked to on a shoestring budget. So there's a lot of work that I'm already doing, and I'm not even elected yet. So those are some of the issues that I will be bringing in to immediately correct this issue here in this office. Finally, it's inclusion. This office also does not provide any type of support for or link to for foster youth, at-risk youth, individuals who are in the jail schools, those who are working towards bettering their lives through the state apprenticeship program. I will be implementing and working with different constituents. The sheriff's office, I will be working with to improve their school system. I've worked for the Department of Corrections. I know how jail schools work. It's a very complicated and interesting situation, but those individuals, believe it or not, even though they may have made bad choices, deserve an education. I will be working with the sheriff's office to be bringing a valid education to every inmate in that system. I will also be working with different agencies within the county, such as Maricopa court-appointed special advocates to assist with foster youth education. I will be working with industry and unions to expand and be able to bring forth apprenticeship programs. I will also work with legislators across the state to open and expand the high school adult program, the adult high school diploma program. Not a GED, but a high school diploma program. Right now that is in place. House Bill 2122 was passed 2 years ago. It is only available through Goodwill of Arizona through the Excel Adult High School Diploma Program that's only available in Coconino, Maricopa, and Pima counties. That is leaving a lot of the state out. We have a 37% dropout rate in rural Arizona, and those adults deserve the opportunity to have a choice to pursue a high school diploma and better their lives and have open opportunities for their families and their communities as well. That will be done through all of the county schools offices and the accommodation districts in each county. So that is the inclusion piece that I'm looking at. I'll be quiet here in just a minute, but let me provide a couple of updates for you. There are 3 Republicans running. You met Mr. Watson, who's one of them, and there are 2 MAGA Republicans running. One of them is a person that I serve on the East Valley Institute of Technology School Board with. She is backed and funded by Turning Point USA. I will not say anything negative about Ms. Boggs, but I will say that it is a challenge. It is a frightening issue. The Republicans put her up on purpose to scare me. And with her backing of Turning Point USA, that is a bit of a frightening challenge on my part. So with that, that is the lay of the land of who I am, what the office is, what the issues are, what I will intend to do about it, whom I'm running against. And let me give you one more update before I open for questions. As Tim mentioned, we need 3,905 signatures that are vetted for each of the county candidates. That's for me, that's for Tim, that's for sheriff, assessor, all of those. I presently have 4,900 signatures. However, with Turning Point USA, I am pushing that to 7,000. That's always been my goal, between 7,000 and 8,000. The more signatures I'm able to get, we are all able to get as county candidates on the e-qual and be able to get those verified, that will keep, I'm hoping, the crazy nuts away from me and my campaign from Turning Point USA, because they are well funded and they have a lot of volunteers that are not having no problems with taking my signatures to court. And I have already been more or less indicated that if that's what's going to happen. I may end up going to court because of my signatures, just because of who Turning Point USA is. So obviously, running a campaign is not cheap. I am your best return on investment. Any of your donations to my campaign will put me in that office, and it will stop the bleeding from the $5 to $6 million that this office has malfeasantly spent, and be able to bring it to a more fruitful and positive and supportive environment for teachers in schools. As I've mentioned, I've been in education for 30 years, and I can't tell you how hard it is to try and find money to give teachers the results or the resources they need to be able to be successful and help their students be successful as well. So a donation of any amount is greatly appreciated. And it's also, the signatures are going to be something to be concerned about. All right, with that, zip, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Laura. This is Jeannie. Before we go to questions, I just want to reiterate that there are so many things that you can do to elect Laura and to elect Tim by not even leaving your chair. The first one is to go on Equal and sign. If you miss the posting of the website in chat, just Google Equal and you'll get on there, and then you can sign for any office that you are eligible for signing. You don't even have to have the paper petitions. You can sign right there, and you won't be missing any because it'll all be there. Donations, you know that you can do that. As they've said, any amount will help. The price of postage is going up incredibly on February 1st. So just postage is important. Getting those voting guides out, getting literature out, helping volunteers with water and snacks, new shoes, anything that you can do from your chair, from your living room, please be sure that you are doing. And it's spring, it's a perfect time to go canvassing. So if you like to be outside in the fresh air, and you can do some walking, you want to meet some of your neighbors, canvassing is a great way to do it. You can phone call, you can write letters. There is so much you can do. And we must elect Dr. Laura Metcalfe for Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools, and we must elect Tim Stringham as our Maricopa County Recorder. You've heard them today. You know how critical it is for them, number one, to be elected, and number two, to replace the people who are currently in office. And we can't get that done without the help of everyone this morning. So please help with that. Let's see. Do we have questions? Oh, Laura, you've talked, and I love that, the integrity, the inclusion, and the other I.
Innovation.
Innovation. Yes, let's say it's January and you're sitting there in your new office. What's the number one thing on your mind that you're going to get done? Of all the things that have to be undone and have to be started, what's the one thing?
The number one thing that I will be putting in, that person will come with me after I take my oath, is the Director of Fiscal Integrity. Again, I do have an idea of who that person is. If I cannot hire that person, I will contract with Heinfield and Meach, who is the organization who's undertaking the forensic audit at this time, until I can put in that full-time person, the Director of Fiscal Integrity. Or I would put both of them in. And that will be the first thing I do. I'm not even going to unpack my office. I'm not even going to I don't even care about an office. I don't care if I have a table with a camp chair as my office. The first thing that I will do day one is implement the person or a third party entity to oversee fiscal integrity. And I will be meeting with those individuals in that office, both at the school district and at the county schools office, and let them know that this is happening. Because once those elections are certified, it's just a matter of time before I can surgically remove what's his name and go in there and start building this foundation of fiscal integrity. I will meet with those employees at all levels where they are, maybe not in their office, but maybe offsite, and I will tell them what the plan will be. And the person that I am looking to bring in has 30 years of experience in school finance. She worked in that office. She knows what to look for and how to report it. And again, if for some reason she can't be in there day one, I will continue contracting with Heinfield and Meach to oversee that until I can put a full-time person in there.
Well,
That's day one. Day one.
Thank you. I think I can say without reservation that everyone on this call is pro-public education, and many of us have been formally in education as board members or as educators and educational support professionals. And it's really outrageous, the disrespect and lack of resources that Arizona public school teachers have had to endure and continue to endure. And both Tim Stringham and, of course, Laura Metcalfe have addressed education and how they will support public education in their offices. And we desperately need that in Arizona for our public school teachers. And that begins, by the way, by changing the faces in the state legislature. We can't change their minds, but we can sure change the faces that are there. So please keep in mind how you can help these two candidates. We need them both in their offices. Laura Metcalfe for Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools and Tim Stringham for Maricopa County Sheriff. Any questions? You covered so much, Laura,
Recorder.
what the office is about and so forth. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. I know it was a lot to drink from. I apologize, but I appreciate it.
All right. In closing, please go to eQual, E-Qual. All you need are the numbers of your Arizona driver's license, and understand what your date of birth was. You can sign the petitions without leaving your home. If they are clean elections candidates, you can contribute $5 to their campaign. And please sign up at CEBV, Civic Engagement Beyond Voting.us, and get that weekly newsletter on Sunday to tell you how to register your approval or disapproval of bills. They are crazier than ever. They are more damaging to what we value than ever before. And you need to have your voice heard. Again, it's not request to speak in front of the committee, although you can do that. It's a request to voice your opinion, which is very important. Remember, you can only go to Blue Tuesday Luncheon at gmail.com to get information about our programs, and join us February 27th for our next program, and you will have candidates to learn about. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful month and a wonderful Valentine's Day. We love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Janie.
Oh, Nadine, you asked about signing a petition a second time. If you go onto eQual, they will not let you sign if you've already signed it. If you are signing paper petitions and you sign a second time, the state will invalidate the second one and go with the one that has the earliest date. So it doesn't hurt. And if you're not sure, Whether you signed before, go ahead and sign. Yes, Karen's right. It doesn't invalidate the whole page, just that one. And there is a website where you can go to register for Request to Speak or RTS training. Or you can simply go to the cebv.us website.
Okay, thank you.